He only stepped outside for a phone call. But when Larry Jones rushed back, his heart stopped. His twins were thrashing in the water, and the maid he thought he could trust was holding them. In that instant, love, fear, and betrayal collided. The morning sun spilled across the wide glass windows of the Jones estate, bouncing off polished marble floors and whispering across the quiet halls. For many, this house was a dream. High ceilings, a pool that glistened like liquid sapphire, and a garden manicured so perfectly it looked like a painting. But for Larry Jones, it was a fortress. Larry was a man of power and precision. At 47, he carried himself with the kind of authority that came from decades of building empires. To the outside world, he had everything: a billionaire with wealth untouchable, influence undeniable. Yet inside, Larry was a man tethered to loss. Since his wife passed away 3 years ago, his heart had been carved by grief, leaving his daughters as the only anchors to his sanity. Lucy and Cara, identical twins with the same golden-brown curls as their mother, were all he had left. Losing them was not an option. Protecting them was his obsession. And so every decision Larry made revolved around them: what they ate, where they went, who they were allowed to be with. His staff understood one rule above all: the twins come first. Regina Nelson knew that rule well. At 34, she had worked in many homes, but none felt as demanding as the Jones mansion. Yet, in no other home had she felt this kind of connection. Lucy and Cara had taken to her the moment she arrived. Her warmth, her laughter, the way she treated them not as little heiresses but as children who needed affection. She tucked them in at night, bandaged their scraped knees, and told them stories about courage and kindness. Still, Regina always carried an invisible weight. She was a maid, an outsider in a palace of wealth. No matter how much the twins adored her, she never forgot her place. And though Larry acknowledged her reliability, his eyes often lingered with caution. He trusted her presence, but never fully her decisions. That morning, as she folded laundry in the twins' room, Lucy tugged at her sleeve. "Miss Regina, Daddy never lets us swim unless he's watching. But can't you show us how, just once, please?" Cara chimed in, her voice full of hope. "We want to be like the other kids, not scared of the water." Regina paused. She knew Larry's rules, strict, unbending. But she also saw the longing in the twins' eyes, the ache of children kept behind invisible walls of protection. She remembered her own childhood, when she and her little brother had begged their mother for the same chance to swim. A shadow passed her eyes, the memory of the day he drowned, the day she'd sworn she would never let fear define love again. Her heart wrestled between duty and compassion. Teaching the girls might be dangerous, but wasn't it also an act of love? She wanted to give them freedom, joy, courage. She wanted to give them something their father's fear had denied. Regina looked at the twins and smiled faintly. "All right, but just for a little while. You have to promise me, don't tell Daddy yet." The girls squealed in delight, racing toward the poolside. Regina followed, her chest tight with both excitement and dread. In the distance, the pool shimmered under the sun like a mirror of fate, its calm surface hiding the storm that was about to change everything. If you've already felt something, anything during this story, you owe it to yourself to stick around for more. Hit subscribe so you don't miss the moment it all falls apart, or comes together. The midday heat pressed down, and the pool shimmered like glass under the sun. Lucy and Cara stood at the edge, clutching each other's hands, their excitement wrapped in nervous giggles. Regina knelt between them, her own heart pounding. "Just hold on to me," she reassured, brushing damp curls from Cara's face. "I'll never let go, okay? You're safe." The twins nodded, trusting eyes wide. Regina eased them into the shallow end, the cool water rising against their skin. Their squeals filled the air as tiny splashes broke the silence. For a moment it felt magical. Lucy kicking, Cara clinging, both laughing with exhilaration. Regina's smile softened. For the first time in years, she felt like she was giving back something she had once lost. The joy of water, the freedom her brother never got to keep. She lifted them gently, teaching them how to float. Relax. Breathe. The water will hold you. But joy turned to panic in seconds. Cara slipped from her grasp, coughing as her face plunged beneath the surface. Lucy, startled, flailed beside her, her small arms splashing wildly. The rhythm of laughter shattered into frantic cries. "Regina!" they screamed together. Her heart seized. She grabbed for Cara, but Lucy's thrashing pulled her away. Two tiny bodies slipping, sinking. The pool that once shimmered now became a trap. "No, no, no! Hold on!" Regina cried, pulling them toward her chest. She wrapped one arm around each girl, fighting to steady them, but the water churned, slippery with fear. And then, "Lucy? Cara?" The voice tore through the air. Larry Jones stood at the terrace door, phone still in hand. His eyes locked on the chaos in the pool, his daughters' heads bobbing, their cries piercing. And in the center, the maid he had trusted, clutching them with desperation. For Larry, the image was a knife. In that split second, he didn't see Regina's intentions. He didn't see her fear. He saw only one thing, his daughters drowning. "God, no!" Larry bolted, his phone crashing to the floor. He ripped off his jacket and leapt into the pool with a splash that echoed like thunder. "Daddy!" Lucy screamed through sobs as he pulled her into his arms. He reached for Cara next, pressing them both to his chest, trembling as he lifted their dripping faces above the water. Regina, still in the pool, her arms frozen mid-air, stammered, I was trying to help." "Help?" Larry's voice broke, raw with rage and terror. His gaze burned into her. "You could have killed them." The silence that followed was deafening, broken only by the girls' whimpers as they clung to their father's shoulders. Larry carried them out of the water, his heart racing, his breath ragged. The twins coughed, sputtered, then wrapped their arms around his neck, trembling. Behind him, Regina remained waist-deep in the pool, drenched and shaking, her lips quivering with words that never left her mouth. The weight of the moment pressed on everyone. For the twins, fear. For Regina, shame. For Larry, betrayal. What had been a chance for joy was now a battlefield of broken trust. The living room was heavy with silence. The twins, still damp from the pool, sat wrapped in towels on the couch, their faces pale and shaken. Larry paced the marble floor, dripping water onto the rug, his fury barely contained. Regina stood near the doorway, hands clenched in front of her, her eyes wide and pleading. She wanted to step closer to the girls, to comfort them, but Larry's glare pinned her in place like a criminal awaiting judgment. "What were you thinking?" His voice boomed, sharp as a whip. "They could have drowned. Do you even realize what almost happened?" "Mr. Jones, please, I was only trying to help. They wanted to learn, Help?" He cut her off, his tone venomous. "You call nearly killing my daughters help?" The twins flinched at his voice. Cara's eyes filled with tears. "Daddy, don't yell at Miss Regina." Larry turned to them, softening only slightly. "Sweetheart, you don't understand. She put you in danger. If I hadn't come in—" His words broke, his throat tight with the memory of the image. Two small bodies thrashing in the water. Lucy tugged at his sleeve. "But she was holding us, Daddy. She didn't let go." Larry froze, torn. The truth in his daughter's voice clashed with the terror still ringing in his chest. His jaw tightened. "That doesn't excuse it." Regina's voice cracked. "Please believe me, sir. I would never harm them. I thought I could give them courage." "Courage?" He stepped closer, towering over her. "You disobeyed me. You went against my rules. You risked my children's lives." Regina's eyes burned, but she held her ground. "And what kind of life will they have if they're always afraid? They wanted to feel normal, to live beyond your fears. I just wanted to give them that." Larry's chest heaved. Her words struck something raw, but he shoved it down. "Enough." The air thickened. The twins looked between their father and the maid they adored, confusion and fear mixing on their small faces. Finally, Larry turned away, his voice low but firm. "Pack your things. You're finished here." The words cut like a blade. Regina's knees wobbled, but she didn't cry. She simply lowered her head, swallowing the pain. "No, Daddy," Lucy burst out, her tiny hands gripping his arm. Cara followed, shaking her head furiously. "Don't send her away. Please, we love her." Larry's heart twisted. He looked into his daughter's desperate faces, then back at Regina, standing there, drenched, trembling but silent. For a long moment he said nothing. His rage battled with the sight of his girls sobbing in front of him. Finally, he muttered, "We'll talk about this later." Regina exhaled shakily, but the relief was hollow. She could feel it. His trust was gone, and trust, once shattered, was the hardest thing to rebuild. The days that followed were thick with unspoken words. Larry couldn't bring himself to fire Regina immediately. Every time he looked into his daughter's eyes, he saw the answer already there. Lucy and Cara refused to eat unless she was present, refused to sleep unless she tucked them in. The mansion, once orderly and controlled, became a battlefield of silent standoffs. At breakfast, Larry sat stiffly at the head of the long dining table, his coffee untouched. Across from him, Regina carefully sliced pancakes for the twins, her hands steady, though her chest burned with tension. "More syrup, Miss Regina," Lucy chirped, her smile fragile but hopeful. Regina poured it gently, her voice warm. "There you go, sweetheart. Not too much, though. We don't want another sugar rush." The girls giggled softly. Larry's eyes flicked up at her, just for a second. Her tone, the ease with which she steadied his daughters, gnawed at the iron walls of his anger. But he quickly looked away, retreating behind his coffee cup. It went on like that, meals marked by half-glances, evenings filled with strained silences. Regina, though humiliated and wounded, did not abandon her duties. She folded laundry, told bedtime stories, and sang lullabies with the same devotion as before. But inside, she carried the crushing weight of Larry's distrust. She caught the way his jaw tightened whenever she drew near, the way his hand instinctively reached for his daughter's shoulders as though shielding them. One night, after the twins had drifted into sleep, Larry passed by their door and paused. The sound of Regina's voice floated out, a soft lullaby, tender and steady. For a moment, he leaned against the wall, his eyes closing. The melody tugged at memories of his late wife, who had sung the same song. His chest ached, torn between pain and gratitude. Regina emerged minutes later, nearly colliding with him. She gasped, clutching her chest. "Mr. Jones, I didn't know you were there." His expression was guarded, though his voice was quieter than before. "They sleep better with you." Regina swallowed. "They're good girls. They just need love and space to grow." Something in her tone pierced him, but pride kept him silent. He nodded curtly and walked away, leaving her standing in the dim hallway, heart pounding. That night, Larry lay awake in his vast, empty room. For the first time, he questioned whether his rage had blinded him. Regina's care was undeniable, but could he forgive her? Could he trust her again? And in her small quarters down the hall, Regina stared at the ceiling, whispering into the darkness, "Maybe he'll never see who I really am." Neither knew it yet, but proximity had already begun its work. In the quiet spaces between anger and grief, something fragile, something human, was beginning to take root. At this point, if you're still watching, you're invested, you care, and I see you. So do me one favor, subscribe, and let's finish this journey together. The tension finally snapped one rainy evening. Larry had just finished a conference call, his voice still laced with the steel of business negotiations. He entered the living room, only to find Regina sitting cross-legged on the rug, a blanket spread out, the twins nestled beside her. They were giggling, pointing at family photo albums spread open across the floor. Old snapshots of their mother, radiant and alive, stared back at them. Larry froze, his chest tightened. "Daddy!" Cara beamed, holding up a picture. "Mummy was so pretty." Larry's throat constricted. He hadn't looked at those albums in years, he couldn't bear to, yet here were his daughters, smiling through the pain of loss, and Regina, guiding them gently through memories. Regina looked up, startled at his presence. She started to gather the albums, fumbling. "I'm sorry, Mr. Jones, they found the box and—" "Leave it," Larry said, his voice low, eyes fixed on the photograph in his daughter's hands. He walked closer, crouching beside them, his gaze softening at the image of his late wife holding the twins as babies. For a long moment, silence filled the room. Then Larry exhaled shakily. She drowned." Regina's head snapped up. His voice was breaking, stripped bare. "My wife," he continued, his eyes glassy. 3 years ago. Boating accident. I wasn't there to save her. And ever since, I swore nothing like that would ever touch my girls." His jaw clenched. "That's why I can't. Why I won't forgive what happened at that pool." The twins leaned against him, their tiny arms wrapping his shoulders. His pain wasn't just anger. It was grief, refusing to heal. Regina's heart ached. Slowly, cautiously, she spoke. "I know that pain, sir, more than you realize." Larry turned, skeptical. "My brother," she whispered, her eyes distant. "He was 10. We begged our mom to let us swim at the river near our home. I promised I'd teach him, keep him safe, but I wasn't fast enough." Her voice cracked, tears trembling on her lashes. "He slipped under. By the time I pulled him out, it was too late." Larry blinked, stunned. For the first time, the walls between them trembled. He saw not just the maid who disobeyed him, but a woman haunted by the same ghost. "That's why I wanted to teach Lucy and Cara," Regina admitted, her voice trembling. "I wanted them to know that water didn't have to mean death, that they could be brave, that they could live without fear." Larry's breath caught. He looked at her, really looked at her. The grief in her eyes mirrored his own. The twins, sensing the shift, leaned closer to Regina. Lucy whispered, "She was just trying to help, Daddy." Larry swallowed hard, emotions warring inside him. For the first time, doubt slipped into his anger. Maybe, just maybe, he had been wrong. The storm outside rattled the windows that night, lightning flashing across the sky. The twins had been restless all evening, their small bodies jittery from memories of the pool and their father's anger. By bedtime, they refused to close their eyes. Regina sat at the edge of their bed, stroking Lucy's hair while Cara clung to her arm. "Shh! You're safe. Daddy's just down the hall, and I'm here. Nothing will hurt you." "But Daddy's mad at you," Cara whispered, her lip trembling. Regina's chest tightened. She glanced toward the door, lowering her voice. "Your Daddy's not mad forever. He loves you so much it scares him. That's all anger is sometimes, love that's too big to carry." Unseen in the hallway, Larry paused. He had been pacing, torn between checking on his girls and keeping his distance. Now, hearing Regina's words, he froze. His heart twisted. Lucy peered up at Regina. "But do you love us?" Regina's throat closed, but her answer was immediate. "With everything I have, you're like the family I prayed for." The twins snuggled closer, their tiny sighs finally softening into sleep. Regina tucked the blankets around them, kissed their foreheads, and quietly slipped out. She nearly collided with Larry in the hallway. She gasped, clutching her chest. "Mr. Jones!" His expression was unreadable, his eyes flickering with the storm inside. But his voice, when it came, was softer than she expected. "Thank you for calming them." Regina nodded, hesitant. "They just need to feel safe." "They do," he agreed, his gaze distant. "And maybe I forget that safety doesn't always come from walls and rules." For a moment, the tension eased. The air between them wasn't heavy with accusation, but with something gentler, almost fragile. Over the next days, cracks began to appear in Larry's armor. At breakfast, he found himself watching Regina make silly faces to coax a laugh from the girls. At lunch, he noticed the way she knelt to their level, listening with real patience. One evening, Lucy spilled her juice across the table, and Larry's instinct was to bark. But before he could, Regina smiled and said, "Accidents happen, sweetheart. Let's clean it together." The twins giggled, wiping the mess with napkins. Larry's shoulders eased. It was small moments, almost imperceptible, but they began to weave into something undeniable. The mansion didn't feel so cold when Regina's laughter echoed. His daughters didn't seem so fragile when she held their hands, and though Larry wouldn't admit it aloud, he caught himself thinking, maybe she belongs here. Maybe I've been wrong. But trust is a fragile seed, and just as it began to grow, the storm of doubt was waiting to tear it apart. At this point, do you think Larry should forgive Regina or let her go? Tell me what you do. And if you haven't subscribed yet, why not? You're here feeling this story, join the family. It should have been a normal afternoon. The twins were playing in the garden, their laughter floating through the open windows. Regina was nearby, weaving daisy crowns for them, her fingers nimble and her smile calm. For a moment the mansion didn't feel like a fortress. It felt like home. But whispers have sharp edges. 2 staff members lingered near the kitchen, voices hushed but laced with venom. "I still can't believe Mr. Jones kept her after what she did," one muttered. "A maid nearly drowned his daughters. If that were my boss, she'd be gone in an instant." "Mark my words," the other replied. "She's only here because the girls are attached. But trust me, she won't last." Larry had walked in on the tail end of the conversation. The words hit him like stones. He didn't speak, didn't correct them. He simply carried the weight of their doubts, and with every step toward the garden, suspicion rekindled in his chest. He stopped in the doorway, watching. Regina laughed as she set the daisy crowns gently on Lucy and Cara's heads. The twins giggled, clapping their hands. It was a tender moment, yet to Larry, the staff's voices echoed louder. "She almost cost me everything. How can I risk this again?" "Girls, inside," Larry called, his voice sharper than he intended. Lucy and Cara blinked in surprise. "But Daddy, now." His tone brooked no argument. The girls scurried past him, confused and disappointed. Regina rose to her feet, brushing grass from her skirt. "Is something wrong, sir?" Larry's jaw tightened. "You've overstepped too many times. I should have let you go that day." Her breath hitched. "After everything we've been through these weeks? You disobeyed me," he snapped, his eyes blazing. "And no matter what excuses you make, my daughters nearly paid the price." The wound cut deeper than she expected. "Excuses," she repeated, her voice trembling. "I've given everything to this house, to those girls. Do you think I see them as anything less than my own?" "Then why risk them?" his voice thundered. "Why play with their lives?" Tears welled in her eyes. "Because fear isn't living. Because I thought—" She stopped, her words faltering as his expression hardened. For a heartbeat, silence stretched between them. The storm they'd survived together seemed like it had never existed. Finally, Regina straightened, her voice breaking but resolute. "If you cannot see who I am by now, then I have nothing left to prove. I'll leave tomorrow." Larry's chest clenched, but pride locked his tongue. He only turned away, his fists trembling at his sides. That night, the twins sobbed into their pillows, begging both parents and fate not to take Regina away. And alone in their rooms, both Larry and Regina wondered the same painful question. Had they just destroyed the only chance they had at healing? Morning sunlight spilled across the mansion, but its warmth did not reach the people inside. Regina's small room was a flurry of quiet movement. Suitcase half filled, folded clothes stacked neatly on the bed. Every piece she packed felt like a piece of her heart torn away from Lucy and Cara. She paused over the daisy crowns the twins had made with her the day before. Her fingers lingered on the fragile flowers before she carefully tucked them into her bag. Across the hall, Lucy and Cara clung to their father's legs. "Daddy, don't let her go," Lucy pleaded, her voice thick with tears. Cara added, "We need her. Please, Daddy." Larry's throat tightened. He brushed their curls gently, but his answer was strangled silence. He told himself he was protecting them, that keeping distance from Regina was the only way to keep them safe. Yet the truth gnawed at him. He was protecting himself from the terror of trust. All day the house felt hollow. Regina moved like a ghost through the halls, finishing chores for the last time. The twins trailed behind her, their eyes red from crying. Larry avoided them all, locking himself in his study. But solitude has a way of stripping pride bare. As Larry sat at his desk, his gaze fell on a family photograph, his wife cradling the twins as babies, her smile radiant, his heart cracked wide open. He had lost her because he wasn't there to save her. But Regina, she had been there. She had tried to save his daughters. Her words from that night echoed in his mind. They just need love and space to grow. He leaned back in his chair, running a hand over his face. He could see it now. His anger had been less about Regina's mistake and more about his own inability to let go of fear. She wasn't the enemy. Fear was. Meanwhile, Regina stood at the gate with her suitcase. She looked back at the mansion one last time, her chest aching. "Thank you for letting me love them," she whispered under her breath. Her cab pulled up, the driver loading her bag into the trunk. She took a shaky breath, ready to leave behind the only family she had ever truly known. Inside, Lucy and Cara burst into Larry's study, tears streaming down their cheeks. "Daddy, she's leaving now!" Larry shot to his feet, panic slicing through him. His daughter's words were the final blow his pride could not withstand. Without another thought, he bolted from the room, his heart pounding, his breath ragged. Out by the gate, Regina gripped the door handle of the cab, her eyes stinging with tears. Just as she pulled it open, "Regina!" she froze. The sound of her name, raw and desperate, cracked across the driveway. She turned to see Larry running toward her, his usually composed face etched with fear and something else, something vulnerable. For the first time, he wasn't the billionaire giving orders. He was just a father, a man, begging not to lose her. "Regina!" Larry's voice cracked the air like thunder as he sprinted down the driveway, the twins chasing after him with frantic cries. Regina turned slowly, her eyes wide, suitcase still in hand. For a moment, she thought she had imagined it. Larry Jones, the man who had built his life on control, on walls and pride, was running toward her, breathless, desperate. He stopped just in front of her, chest heaving, eyes locked onto hers. Rain from the night before still clung to the air, but the storm inside him had finally broken. "Don't go," he said, his voice rough. "Please." Regina blinked, clutching the handle of her suitcase tighter. "Mr. Jones, you made it clear. I don't belong here." Larry shook his head, stepping closer. "I was wrong. I've been wrong from the start." He glanced at his daughters, Lucy and Cara, their faces streaked with tears. His voice trembled. "You love them. You've cared for them in ways I couldn't. I was too blinded by fear to see it." Regina's lip quivered. "I never meant to hurt them. I only wanted to give them freedom, to show them water could be safe. I swear I would give my life before letting anything happen to them." "I know." His voice broke, raw and unguarded. "I know that now. I let my past, my wife's death, poison everything, but you were never the enemy. You were the answer." The twins threw their arms around Regina, sobbing into her waist. "Please stay, Miss Regina. Please." Regina dropped her suitcase, kneeling to hold them tight, her tears mingling with theirs. When she looked up, Larry's hand was extended, not as an employer, but as a man surrendering his pride. "Stay," he whispered, "not just as their caretaker, but as family." Regina stared at his hand, her heart thundering. For so long she had been the outsider, the servant, the one never truly seen. But here, in this moment, Larry Jones was offering her something she had never dared to hope for: belonging. Her fingers slipped into his, trembling. "Family," she repeated softly, almost in disbelief. Larry's shoulders sagged with relief. He pulled her to her feet, his eyes shimmering. Family. Days later, the pool no longer stood as a symbol of fear. Under the golden afternoon sun, Larry, Regina, Lucy and Cara stood at its edge together. Regina eased the girls into the shallow water, this time with their father's steady arms by their side. The twins laughed, splashing, free of fear at last. Larry glanced at Regina. She smiled, radiant and unguarded, her laughter mingling with the girls'. Something in him healed, a wound long festering finally at peace. He whispered more to himself than anyone. "We're safe now, all of us." The camera of memory lingered on the scene. A billionaire, his maid, and 2 children, no longer separated by wealth, rules, or fear, but bound by something stronger. Love had found them in the unlikeliest place, and it had stayed. Do you believe true love and trust can survive even after being tested this hard? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if this story touched you, subscribe. Don't just leave with the emotions, stay and be part of the family.